She pleaded to exchange her child for bread, but the rancher stayed silent. Then took them both. The sun bore down mercilessly upon the dusty trail that cut through the heart of the frontier. Heat shimmered off the earth in waves, and every step felt heavier than the last. Clara stumbled forward, clutching her child to her chest. The baby's cries had grown weak, almost voiceless, from days without enough food. Her dress, once pale blue, was now stiff with dust and sweat. Her shoes had worn through at the toes, and each pebble stabbed her feet like knives. She had begged in town that morning, at the bakery, at the mercantile, even at the saloon, but pity was scarce in a land where everyone fought their own battles to survive. A loaf of bread had been priced beyond her reach. And when she offered her locket, the last remnant of her late husband, the shopkeeper had shaken his head. "Times are hard," he muttered. "I can't trade silver for something I can't sell." She had left the town square with shame pressing down on her shoulders. Whispers had followed her. "That poor widow, that child won't make it. Someone ought to send her away before she becomes a burden." By midday, Clara had reached the edge of a ranch she'd heard spoken of in half-fearful, half-respectful tones. A man lived there, a rancher who rarely came into town, known for his silence and solitude. They said he had lost his wife years ago and since then preferred the company of horses and cattle to people. He wasn't cruel, but he wasn't friendly either. Clara paused at the fence line, heart hammering. Her child whimpered, tiny fists trembling against her breast. She knew this was madness. What woman would beg a stranger, a hardened rancher, for mercy? But desperation left no room for pride. She found him in the barn, driving a pitchfork into a mound of hay. He was tall, broad-shouldered, his shirt damp with sweat, his hands calloused from labor. His hat shaded his eyes, but even in shadow she felt the weight of his gaze when he noticed her standing in the doorway. Her throat closed. She forced the words out before she lost her nerve. "Sir, please." Her voice cracked. She held out the child, as if the gesture alone might explain her despair. I'll give you my baby. Just a loaf of bread. He hasn't eaten properly in days. He'll die if—" Her knees buckled. She sank to the floorboards, clutching the infant tighter. Tears stung her eyes. "Please, take him. Take care of him. I'll go hungry. Just don't let him starve." The barn fell silent but for the rustle of hay and the baby's faint whimpers. The rancher said nothing. He didn't ask questions, didn't speak comfort or scorn. He simply crouched down, studying her with unreadable eyes. Clara felt her shame deepen under that gaze. Heat burned her cheeks. He must think I'm wicked, offering away my own child. She turned her face aside, ready to rise and stumble back into the sun. But before she could, his shadow shifted. Strong arms reached down, not just for the child, but for her as well. She gasped as he lifted them both, as easily as if they weighed no more than a sack of grain. He carried them out of the barn, across the yard, and into the farmhouse without a word. Inside, the air was cooler, shaded. He set her in a chair by the hearth, then disappeared into the kitchen. Moments later, he returned with bread, thick slices, rough but fresh, and set them on the table. Clara blinked in disbelief. Her hands shook as she tore off a piece and pressed it to her baby's lips, watching hungrily as the child suckled crumbs. Relief crashed over her so powerfully she nearly sobbed aloud. When she dared look up, the rancher was watching. Still silent, still solemn, but something softer flickered in his eyes, something she couldn't name. For the first time in weeks, Clara felt the tiniest spark of safety. He hadn't spoken a word. He hadn't promised anything. But by taking them both into his home, He had already spoken louder than words. And though she didn't yet know it, the silence that frightened her now would one day become the very thing she trusted most. The farmhouse was still that night, save for the creak of timbers and the distant call of coyotes under a silver moon. Clara lay on a straw-filled mattress, her child nestled warm against her side. For the first time in weeks, her belly was not gnawing with hunger. The bread he had given them sat heavy and satisfying in her stomach, and yet sleep would not come. Her eyes kept drifting to the door. Just beyond it, she knew the rancher slept, or perhaps didn't sleep at all. He was a silent man, a man carved from stone, it seemed. She had not heard him speak once since he had carried her into the house. Why had he done it? Why take in a stranger, a woman so low she had tried to trade her own baby for bread? The shame of that moment burned her still. Yet he had not looked at her with disgust. Only with that unreadable gaze, steady and firm, like he was weighing something only he understood. Days passed, and Clara found herself falling into the rhythm of ranch life. She swept floors, mended shirts, washed dishes. She wanted to repay him somehow, though he never asked. When the baby cried at night, she rose quickly so as not to disturb him, but once she caught him standing in the doorway, silent, watching her rock the child to sleep. His expression was unreadable, yet his eyes seemed softer in the glow of lamplight. The baby grew stronger. His cheeks filled, his cries sharpened. Sometimes Clara caught the rancher, Ethan, she learned from a letter left on his desk, offering the child a finger to grasp while he worked. The sight made her chest ache in a way she couldn't explain. Still, Ethan spoke no words. His silence was a wall, high and impenetrable. She wondered if it hid disdain, or sorrow, or something else entirely. One evening, as she stirred stew over the fire, she found her voice trembling. "Sir Ethan," she corrected, "I can't stay here forever. You've given us food, shelter, but I've no right to ask more of you." He paused in the doorway, leaning his shoulder against the frame. For a heartbeat she thought he might answer. Instead, he crossed the room, took the spoon gently from her hand, and stirred the pot himself. It was no command, no dismissal. It was an act of care. Her eyes stung with tears, she tried to blink away. He hadn't spoken, but the message was clear enough. You belong here. The test of that truth came sooner than she expected. A storm rolled across the prairie one night, black clouds swallowing the stars. Wind howled against the shutters. Rain lashed the earth, and thunder cracked like cannon fire. Clara had just soothed the baby when a frantic pounding came at the door. Rustlers. 3 men, faces shadowed by slick hats, pushed inside when Ethan opened. Their boots tracked mud across the floor, their voices sharp and demanding. They wanted horses, supplies, anything they could carry. Clara's heart leapt into her throat as one of them spotted her and the baby in the corner. "Well, ain't this something?" the man sneered, stepping closer. "Didn't know you kept company, McGraw." Ethan's body shifted, blocking their path. Still silent, but his presence filled the room like iron. The rustler laughed. "What, you think you can take all 3 of us without saying a word?" Lightning split the sky outside, throwing the room into stark light. In that flash, Clara saw Ethan's eyes, hard, unyielding. He reached for the rifle mounted by the hearth, and in one fluid motion had it leveled. The next moments blurred. Shouts, the crack of gunfire, the acrid sting of smoke. Clara clutched her baby tight, heart pounding as Ethan drove the men back, one wounded, the others fleeing into the storm. When silence returned, only the rain remained, drumming against the roof. Ethan lowered the rifle slowly. Clara stared at him, breathless. He had protected them, without hesitation, without demand. Her knees gave out, and she sank to the floor. Tears spilled hot and unbidden, not from fear but from something far deeper. "Why?" she whispered. "Why do you do this for us?" For the first time since she had met him, Ethan spoke. His voice was low, rough with disuse, but steady. "Because you're mine now." The words stole her breath. She looked up, startled. His gaze was steady, unflinching. He set the rifle aside, came to her, and with a gentleness that undid her completely, brushed a tear from her cheek. "I lost everything once," he murmured, voice growing surer. "Wife, child. Thought I'd never speak again, never let anyone close. Then you came, begging for bread, ready to give up the only thing that mattered. I couldn't let you, couldn't let either of you go." Clara's heart swelled until it hurt. She pressed her face against his chest, his silence no longer frightening but sheltering. The baby stirred between them, small fingers brushing against Ethan's shirt as if sealing the bond. That night the storm raged outside, but within those walls was warmth, safety, and the quiet beginning of love. Clara no longer wondered if she had a place in the world. She had one now, by his side, in his silence, where she and her child were wanted, not as burdens, but as family. And though their story began with hunger and shame, it blossomed into something stronger than words could ever capture.